All right, mech commanders and mech warriors, the question, Battletech, what takes out a mech? Now, one of the amazing things in Battletech for me is this narrative of just how much punishment can you take? Just how long can you stay in the game? I mean, these mechs take tremendous amounts of punishment, arms being blown off, internal damage, weapon system failures, components. You're on fire, you're smoking, but you're still blasting away. Now, of course, that doesn't always fit the narrative. As a mech commander, I'm pretty unforgiving and pretty brutal. Most of the time we fight to the end. Honestly, with that narrative, some mechs take some damage, your mech's arm gets blown off, you're probably going to try and withdraw. Let's put that aside for a moment and say just, right, House Karita operatives, you're showing no mercy. You're just fighting it out to the very end. We're constantly making these calculations. How long can I stay in the fight? How much damage can my mech take? And the first kind of hurdle is, in my opinion, when your mech takes enough damage that the fire output is decreased, where it's really not going to do much. So we have all these variables, right? I've got to hit you. So I've got factors moving up and down. I start with my base mech warrior ability. Then I look, well, what's the range of the weapon? Short, medium, long. What terrain is in the way? Have I moved? Am I standing still? Running, jumping, walking? How many hexes have you moved? Target priority. Is one better than the other, where I might be able to score a hit on something farther away, harder to hit, but take it out, but the mech that's close is fully juiced and hasn't had any damage done to it. So we make all these calculations, and you stand a reasonable amount of hitting based on how many weapons you have in the range. But as you take damage and as you lose weapons, and now instead of 3 or 4 weapons, if it's a medium mech or a heavy mech, you might only have 1 that's useful. So what is that really going to do? That's where I first start to ask, combat effectiveness of this mech. Have we reached that? Now, at that point, there is the possibility for physical attacks. There's other ways it can be combat effective outside of shooting. We're just kind of generalizing and building this checklist, especially for the new players. But at some point, even if I lack combat effectiveness, I don't want my mech to be destroyed. Not because I'm not playing in the rules or I'm playing in a campaign, but initiative. Initiative is huge in Battletech. I would rather have a mech smoking and burning and everything's blown up on it, but if it's still up, when it's my turn to move, win or lose initiative, I can choose to move that piece, especially if I pulled it away, especially if I've withdrawn. That gives the mechs that are in play more room to maneuver. So losing a mech is a big deal in Battletech. If you play with combined arms, losing that initiative is a big deal, and it piles up and up and up. So from that perspective, what takes out a mech? Because we want to try to avoid that. So certainly ammo explosions versus non-ammo explosions. If I have an energy mech, anything internal, what do I really have to worry about? Motive hits, legs, and getting my gyro or engine cored out. Heat sink loss is obviously going to decrease my capacity if I'm an all-energy mech, but that's different if I have an autocannon as my primary weapon. Or I'm energy-based, but I have a 6-pack, SRM 6-pack with some ammo. And we're not even talking about playing like a longbow, which I regularly play, which that thing is just packed with missiles everywhere. So certainly what takes out a mech, ammo explosions. We need to be mindful of that. Now, I also find it goes in a different direction. Light mechs just tend to fall apart because they don't have any internal structure. They don't have any type of armor. I mean, I'm trying to think the last time I had an ammo explosion on my Locust or something. Usually you get cored out based on the damage transfer. Tactically, on a side note, and we've explored this up on my Battletech playlist here on the channel, I want to keep speed, I want to keep distance, I want to keep moving. My plan is not to get hit as a light mech. My plan is to make it hard to hit as a medium mech. My plan is to blast you as a heavy mech, but still use positioning to try and not get hit. And as an assault mech, look, I'm going in, guns blazing and fists and kicking. I'm going to get hits, but I'm still going to try not to get hit and know when to close and when to stay back. So in that aspect, I find ammo explosions are weighted a lot. They're a lot more dangerous to heavies, and assaults, especially assaults. If I get an unlucky spread and I go to internals and I've got that missile pack on there, I might want to just get that ammo, dump it out back, open the hopper, dump it out, because it's too dangerous just to have like one stray LRM missile just land right in that pocket and just explode me. You know, there's nothing worse where like you take a hit and you're like, okay, it goes to internal, roll for confirm crit. Okay, confirm crit. All right, roll. Is it 1 to 6? Is it 1 to 3 or 4 to 6? And then you're like, please be 1 to 3. Please be 1 to 3. They roll the 6, and you're like, I'm done. I'm not even going to calculate the ammo. I'm just exploded, smoking boots. So I want to keep that in mind. I find if you take arm hits, you can still be in the game. Most mechs that are not specialized will mount a primary weapon on the arm, so you'll lose the autocannon, you'll lose the PPC. Yes, I'm down a primary weapon, but I still got some secondaries in the torso, left torso, right torso to push out. When I'm playing a specialized mech, autocannon mechs, or going back to the longbow, I lose an arm, that's a 20-pack. That's a significant cut. And on a side note, regardless of whatever weight class you play, the arms are the leastly armored, tongue twister there, aspects and components of the mech. So I want to look and say, I don't want to lose the arms, but that doesn't necessarily take me out of the fight. Left torso and right torso. That becomes a problem because based on how pieces fall off and damage transfers, that goes into the center. Now, the center, of course, you've got the gyros, you've got the engine, you might have heat sinks, you might have weapon components in there. That's the bite. You start taking gyro hits and engine hits, you're in a lot of trouble. It's protected with the most armor, drawing that tank analogy, regardless of weight class, you're going to have the most on there, but it can go downhill very, very fast. You don't have to take multiple hits to the center torso. You could take those hits to left or right, transfers in, starts to move out. So I find that as soon as we really start penetrating a torso and it starts to spread, that takes down a mech pretty fast. Headshot, obviously, but I discount the headshot because it is a smaller probability. Yes, on the way in, first or second shot, you could take that AC-20 to the head. It can happen. It has happened. But that's just the nuance of Battletech. Legs. Now, this is where things get interesting. Some mechs have a ton of armor, Stalker with their legs. Others, not so much. The mobility of a battle mech, I find when you start taking damage to your legs, you have to really monitor that because it goes to internals. Usually what happens is if you're a light mech, you're like one shot off from just having the leg be completely sheared off. If you're medium, it's kind of 50-50. If you're heavy in assault mech, you've got a lot of internal structure, but you take hits. Now we got to start rolling for crits. You start having some of those systems take damage. You are cutting down massively on mobility, which means if your torso gets open up or you start losing arms and it transfers over, it's hard to get out of that hot spot. So all of a sudden I find like, hey, I'm doing pretty good. Taking some damage, my legs to internals. If things turn fast, I can't get out. The other challenge is, and this is the kind of middle ground between initiative and mobility, you have your leg blown off, you're going to fall down, you're going to crash down, you're going to do pilot check, you'll take a little bit of damage. Yes, you could prop yourself up. Yes, you could stand up on one leg, but you're pretty much tactically out of the game in terms of if the action in the moment shifts and changes, you're left hopping around. Now, this leads up to the other player. You have to look at the mech and the damage they've taken. Do I want to just bypass that mech because now it's not going to do anything in the game, if we move on from the battlefield position where we are? Or do I want to core it out and really destroy it to take away an initiative point of movement from my opponent? We got to navigate this back and forth. I had a Thorn. It's a scout mech. It's got an LRM 5-pack. It's got a couple of medium lasers. It's got some decent speed. And I regularly use it to just kind of harass, meaning zap with medium lasers, pesky vehicles, long lanes of fire, usually in city fight, city tech, just hit that LRM 5-pack, maybe get off an indirect. It's a skirmish mech. It's to start rolling some dice to get my opponent to react or not react to it and see what we can do. So I think of it as something to create opportunity. It's also got enough of a blend of speed and range that I can chase off other pesky light mechs. So with that, it was a game where I don't quite remember all these Battletech games, right? Just piling in my head at once. Something happened where we were skirmishing back and forth. I got tagged a couple of times. My mech went down. My Thorn went down in some heavy woods. And it lost like its arms too. So essentially it was just like a torso on a leg. And my opponent didn't finish it off. Tactically, that made sense because it was scouting out in the backwoods and the battle had shifted. This mech's not going anywhere. It's done. But I had a significant advantage in that since it was still up and operational, and I know some people play with different rules, but rules is written, it's operational, then I'm initiative, okay? The Thorn is going. It's doing nothing. It's standing there. That was a helpful advantage. That was a helpful advantage in the battle. Now, I still think it was, on a side note, I still think it was the right decision because we had skirmished early on, did some damage, Thorn goes down, the battle moves to the center, city fight, city tech. To go back and pull something off, to do that, we were both so committed force to force that just did not make sense to pull something off to deal with it, one or two turns, and certainly I was going to fire back. So to commit to that when you had effectively taken it out, it made sense. But I was able to use that initiative. So the legs, you got to monitor that. You got to really watch that because very, very fast it can sneak up on you. All right, more experienced veteran mech warriors and mech commanders. These mechs take a ton of punishment. What takes out a mech? What are those key tacticas that we got to look at for and to realize, look, this is compounding. Your machine might go down. Maybe you want to withdraw because in my opinion, it is always better, outside of the narrative, outside of the campaign, pure meta, pure dice, it is better to keep that initiative point active where you can utilize it than to lose it.